there, and welcome to episode 13 of the Nova Scotia Kitchens podcast. Barb's roasted butternut squash soup and buttermilk drop biscuits too. I'm Sherry Graham. On today's show, I visit with my friend Barb in her hard-working and well-equipped kitchen. Barb is one of the best home cooks I know, and in this episode, you'll hear her share all kinds of kitchen wisdom. You'll hear about fatty blobs of goodness, the best way to avoid crying when cutting onions. It does require a prescription, though. And you'll hear about some of Barb's favorite kitchen tools. The occasional whistling kettle sound in the background and the screaming children voices are courtesy of our kids who were around on the afternoon we visited, circling in and out. But they're off in the background, so they shouldn't be too noticeable. There are links to all of the things we mention on Barb's post over at novascotiakitchens.com. Enjoy, and welcome to Barb's Kitchen.
This is exciting.
I can't wait. So
I'm going to throw ginger in this because I happen to like ginger in my squash soup.
I love ginger.
Well, I've never met too many people that disliked ginger.
And if they do, why bother with them?
They don't have to put it in. So I've peeled this beautiful squash. It's just it's one I got from Evelyn.
Philip, I'm recording already, bud. You can go outside. Okay?
You still put ginger in your cooking and I don't like it.
Exactly. More for Sherry.
More for me.
Anyways, I peeled it. Good sharp knife helps.
Yes.
And I'm going to cube it into about inch cubes, right? And I happen to hum when I do stuff, so.
No.
They don't have to all be perfect, but they should be approximately the same size. It's just that they'll cook more evenly that way. I am heating the oven up to about 425 Fahrenheit. If it's 425 Celsius, I will run.
That's a problem. So we're making a butternut squash soup.
Yep.
And I'm assuming you're going to be roasting the butternut.
That's
the
exactly.
Squash first.
I'm going to roast some squash and I'm going to roast some carrots with it too. Because I'd put carrots in any start of my soup, but since it's a wonderful root vegetable, I'll get a caramelization on it and I'll get that beautiful richness, a better flavor when I roast the carrots. Yeah. My husband sharpened my knives for me yesterday.
Oh, I meant to bring mine.
I was going to suggest it too.
I thought yesterday I'm going to take my knives and use Barb's sharpener again.
I was thinking that because it's always here. It's sitting right up there anytime
I
you
know.
want it.
It's just a matter of having you in the car with me when I'm making it.
Well, you don't normally travel with cooking knives, really.
That is true.
It's one of those things.
So, I know this is a recipe that you make regularly. So, where's the recipe from? Or did you just make it up?
It's kind of a combination of a number of recipes, but I have a website to give you at the end, and I'm trying to remember. I think it's from Serious Eats is the basic recipe.
Perfect.
And that way, and then I adjust it to suit myself. But it works with squash, and I can do a similar type thing with a parsnip or carrot soup. Right? It's the same basic soup recipe for any roasted vegetable. So that's my squash.
You're quick. You made short work of that.
I peeled it first. The peeling is where most things cause you grief.
Now, do you have any tricks for peeling your squash, or do you just go at it?
I'm brute strength and a really sharp knife, to tell you the truth. For a butternut squash, I do cut the long skinny end off first and deal with it, and then I can deal with the round part more easily because it'll sit squarely on your cutting board. Now these are just straight from the farmer's market. I gave them a little rinse because the peel is really thin. Yeah. But if you want to peel them, if you're more picky than I am, you can do that. I'm just going to cut the ends off them and cut them into shapes that are very similar to my squash and fire that out.
Perfect. That was about 2 carrots.
2 carrots. You can put as many as you want. It depends on the sweetness level you want. Now here's some careful measuring. Squirt, 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 squirt.
Olive oil.
And
This is my kind of recipe. I love it.
I grab about a teaspoon of kosher salt. You can use regular salt, doesn't matter. I just happen to like cooking with kosher salt.
Perfect.
And scatter it all over. And I should have a pepper grinder about. This is my favorite pepper grinder in the whole world. That I got for like a toonie 20 years ago.
Really?
They were on clearance at a Loblaws in Ontario.
That's impressive.
And I was so excited.
We've gone through, I don't know how many, 5 probably? 15 years.
Get your hands dirty now. You gotta make sure that all of your squash and carrots get a little bit of oil.
Yeah.
And get a little bit of salt and pepper on them. And then you spread them out so that they're all touching your pan, so they're not all piled together. If you spread them out as much as you can. I put them on parchment so that they don't stick to my pan when I'm trying to get them off. And that way I get all the nice brown bits. However, if you don't have parchment, you can do it right on a cookie sheet, and then you can deglaze your pan with a bit of chicken stock when you're done. If you're if you're into that kind of yumminess.
So much flavor.
That's just it. All right. Now I get to wash my hands before I start running things around. Now what I figured we'd do while we start cooking is once the squash comes out of the oven, make some biscuits to go with it.
I have no problem with that.
Because why waste a hot oven? Really. And I have some beautiful chicken stock that my husband made and concentrated from a homemade chicken and all that jazz.
Yeah.
So this is going in. My oven's almost hot enough. I'm not too concerned. It's going in at 425, and I'll flip it in about a half an hour. But you're stuck staring at me for a little while yet.
That is no problem.
Now while we're waiting, I had a half an onion all to start with this. We're going to dice some onion and get that ready to go. I don't know how you dice your onions or not.
I actually find it fascinating how everybody does it differently. And I wonder if you do yours the proper, like you leave the root intact and then go from there.
It's easier that way.
When I'm feeling like I have time, I do that, which is funny because it's the better way to do it. You probably save yourself time longer, but it's not how I do it when I'm on autopilot.
They don't have to be perfectly chopped onions. They don't have to all be the same size because we are going to blend this at the end.
Right, perfect.
And if you see me crying for the next few minutes, because I can't tolerate onions very well.
You don't wear contacts, do you?
No, I don't.
I find that is the best thing for cutting onions. It's amazing.
I should get glasses just because.
No, glasses don't help at all. And sometimes I'll be cooking and I'll be wearing my glasses. The tears just pouring down my face. Oh, I should have thought ahead.
Now I'm going to add celery because I happen to like celery and onions together when I do my soup base.
Yum.
Yummy, 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 yummy. Except I can't see what I'm doing because I've been cutting onions. I'm going to look slightly preposterous. No. They'll go away in their own. I'm just cutting the celery in little rounds because they're going to soften with the onions.
Perfect. Celery is my favorite sounding vegetable to chop because you hear it go through all the little fibers.
There we go.
Pull yourself together, Barb.
Now look at that.
Holy
That I
smokes.
think was grown by Sasha and Jimmy
Nice.
at the farmer's market.
It is the...
Shout out to Bullygoff Farm.
It is a massive, gorgeous, beautiful...
Normally I'd use
my word.
Well, and it's a mild garlic too, right? It's an elephant garlic.
It's like a 1/4 cup single clove of garlic.
Yes, it is. Well, at least 1/8 of a cup.
Yeah.
So I figured we'll just do one massive one. That's
just
beautiful.
right now. Yeah.
So anyways, we're going to do some garlic with it.
So we have an onion. You had about 2 stalks of celery.
I think I put 3 in, but one was skinny. So
Okay.
Ish. Yes. Approximately the same amount of celery and onion is what I got there.
Okay.
People can do it to taste, whatever they want. And I don't have to make sure all my garlic's too small because, again, we are going to puree this sucker with a, as Jamie Oliver say, we're going to whiz it later. I have an immersion blender, which is one of those kitchen gadgets I will never ever give up because it makes my life easier.
We have one too, and I love it.
Oh,
Especially, I remember making blended soups before I had one, and pouring boiling hot soup into a blend. Like, it's the most dangerous thing you can imagine.
And it could explode all over if you're not careful.
Yeah.
You need to put a dish towel over the top just to make sure you don't get scalded. Now I'm going to put about 1 inch of ginger in.
Okay.
And ginger, it's a bit of a pain in the butt. I could grate it, but I want it to be small and fine.
Yeah.
Because if you take a bite out of a piece of ginger when you're not expecting it, it pretty much blows your mind.
Whoops.
Yeah. Now, some people love massive ginger experience. There's a little Thai place in Halifax that I get a ginger beef stir fry in, and all the ginger is in like shoestring kind of.
Oh yes.
But they leave it so that you get big giant bites of ginger. And the first time I was not expecting it. And I pretty much was awake for the next 2 days. Because it just, after that, I knew what I wanted.
What Thai place is that? Is that Chava or Tally?
I think that was just one of the quick ones, the Thai on
Thai
the go.
Express?
Yeah, Thai Express. It was tasty though.
Yum. The first time I ever cut ginger, we were living in Fredericton and I was in university. And I found this Martha Stewart recipe for chicken with ginger, and I thought, oh, perfect. This is when I was just really first starting to cook, like for recipes and stuff. I had never used fresh ginger. I had never smelled it before.
Oh, so
and
intense.
I cut it, and I was like, this is
magic.
This is the most amazing thing in the world. And I was like, what else don't I know about? And
fresh garlic.
Ever since, I've just been like, trying to find all the flavors. And that recipe actually, it's Martha Stewart. I think it's just called chicken with ginger, and it has it in little shoestrings. And so you get those big bites of ginger, which is
as long as you're prepared.
Yes.
It's a beautiful thing.
If that's what you're looking for.
Ta-da!
Beautiful.
So that was about 1 inch of ginger and 1 massive thing of garlic.
Perfect.
There we go. Well, we're all ready until that stuff comes.
Awesome.
And when I go to turn the squash, then I'll start heating up my pan and start sauteing this.
Gotcha. Perfect.
That way we'll have time.
So tell me about your kitchen. What are some of your favorite things about your kitchen?
I don't like my kitchen. It's adequate. I like this big counter space, but we tend to fill it with stuff.
Yeah.
I love the magnetic strip that holds all my knives. I also love this thing. Ta-da! I love that thing.
Utensil craft? That is beautiful too.
That is from Lynch Arm Pottery in Antigonish.
Nice.
And I absolutely love, I think it's a bread crock. Really, but I've never made bread in it because it's the most beautiful thing to hold.
Oh, it's perfect.
And I have 8,000 rubber scrapers.
Same.
And as far as I can tell, you can never have too many rubber scrapers in your life.
I agree.
I also love this bowl, and it's starting to get cracked. This is an Emile Henry bowl.
Very sunny and yellow. I like that one.
I got it as a wedding present, and I have used it almost daily since I've gotten it.
Those are the
along with that red Dutch oven over there when we bought that.
Oh, Le Creuset.
Yeah, that was one of our, we're getting a real house. Let's get a real thing to cook with. And of course our stand mixers. So I guess it's my toys as opposed to my kitchen.
The actual kitchen.
My husband made this, we save all our chicken bones, of course.
Yeah.
And he made this phenomenal stock. And that's what we're going to use, this beautiful, I'll have to actually water it down because it's so intense.
Oh, it looks like gravy.
Yes. He cooked it down to intensify the flavor and then said, this is pretty concentrated, you might want to
water
add some
down
water.
a bit.
So,
Yum.
And the squash soup there'll be enough of it that we can definitely water it and still have an intense chicken flavor.
Yeah.
You don't have to use homemade broth, you can use a boxed broth, but we had it in the freezer, and the more space we can make in our freezer, the more stuff I can put in the freezer.
It's true.
So it's all a good thing.
I usually use Better Than Bouillon. I heard them recommend it on America's Test Kitchen because every other thing I've tried, like the cubes and stuff, are gross.
The best that I've tried,
and
I haven't
it's
tried
really
that.
It's in a jar.
It's the reduced salt Campbell's, and it has to be
Yes.
the reduced salt stuff
Yeah.
because it actually tastes more like regular chicken broth.
Yeah.
I find the bouillon so salty
Yep.
that I just
The nice thing about the better than bouillon, it's in a jar and it's a paste. So you can put like
As little
I
as
don't.
possible.
I only put I think maybe half what it usually calls for because otherwise it's just way too salty. But the chicken one's really good. It's actually made with chicken and so forth.
always a plus.
Yeah, I know, right? Actually got chicken in
always
it.
a plus.
So that's usually what if we don't have any of our own broth in the freezer, then that's what I use. And I also love that it comes in a tiny little jar, like probably not quite a cup maybe. And it keeps in the fridge forever. Because I find if I open up a broth and I only need half of it, then the rest of it sits in there, and then by the time I need to use it or remember
We
it
put
again.
the date on it in Sharpies. That's an important part of your kitchen. Have
Oh,
Sharpies
yes.
about. And we put the date on that. And blue painter's tape usually is what we use.
Oh, yeah.
For everything in the freezer, it's got a stick of blue tape on it, and it tells us what it is.
There you go.
Magical, mystical Barb's tape. That's just one of those things.
My mom always used masking tape, so she always had
Yep.
it in the cupboard right by
Yeah,
the
the
sink and
children
label
wander
everything.
off
And,
with masking.
ooh, a big puff of steam just escaped.
Yes,
the
you
stove.
have to be aware of that.
So you have the oven on, what'd you say,
425.
425, and you put them in for 20 minutes? How long do you
I
put them in
set
for?
that for a half an hour,
Okay.
and then I'm going to turn it and put it in for another 15 minutes or so. So
Okay.
it's about 45 minutes. But you'll see, it depends on how dense your squash is,
Yeah.
how dry it is. This was a pretty dry squash. Now while that's happening, I'm going to start heating up this lovely thing. Favorite pot ever. It's
I
well
got a picture
loved.
already.
It's well
That's the
loved.
best. Mine is so stained and discolored on the
Oh
inside.
yeah, the
and-
inside is
Yeah.
it's black.
Yeah. So what got you interested in cooking? Did you even cook when you were a kid?
A little bit. I grew up with meat and potatoes and turnips, or fish and potatoes and turnips, every day for most of my entire existence.
Until you met Daddy.
No, actually, until I moved out.
Oh, wow.
And
That's
one of the
just
first
sad.
things I did was buy a cookbook. And I really liked, in my two-channel world, CBC had a show called The Pleasant Peasant. Close that door now. I don't know if you remember that. He's a little old guy in BC with a thick British accent who always said, "You use what you got." And he'd just make stuff, and I don't know if half the time he was even paying attention to what he was doing, but everything had garlic in it, and everything just looked delicious when it was done. And he had so much fun doing it, and it made it fun for me to watch.
Nice.
And then I discovered Lydia.
Bastianich. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
she's fantastic. And I could have watched her forever.
Yeah.
And Mario Batali's first show, Molto Mario, I think that's what it was called.
Yeah.
I thought that was one of the most fun things I'd seen. He was just sitting with his friends around and cooking.
Yeah.
And it all looked simple and fast and
Yeah.
delicious. So I started buying garlic.
Yeah.
Started cooking with it. So I've collected a ton of cookbooks.
Yeah.
I got into Indian food and Thai
Yeah.
food and Chinese food and all these different things. And my husband loves Mexican food, and so does Catherine. So
Yeah.
now we're not afraid to do anything. And a
Yeah.
lot of these cookbooks look terrifying because there's things that you've never seen before. But once you realize you can fill your pantry with all of these little spices and all these different things, then it's just a matter of firing all those things in a pot. And life becomes much more interesting. Throw a little bit of olive oil in here.
So
You could just use butter or regular oil. I threw in a combination of butter and olive oil, mainly because I forgot. And I was just going to use butter. Let me flip that in a second. But I'm going to brown the butter a little bit, just to get a nutty flavor to it before I throw the other stuff in.
and now what size is your Le Creuset? Do you know? Like
Oh, it is.
the quart measurement or whatever?
It's at least
It's a big
8.
one.
Yeah, it might be 8 to 10.
That's a
Done.
nice big one.
It
You
is.
can fit a lot in there.
It is.
I know that's made its way to my house a few times for potlucks.
Yes. Yeah, you can. It fits a ton.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful size. If I had 2 more of these, I'd be even happier.
And I don't have an actual Le Creuset. I have a knockoff, like KitchenAid enamel cast iron one, which is nice. But the walls on it are a lot thicker, and it doesn't sit as square.
Oh.
Like it's kind of tapered where it's narrower at the bottom and wider at the top, but the shape of the Le Creuset is much nicer.
Well, and you got a beautiful one at Frenchie's, so you got
That's just a little one, yeah.
yeah, a braising pan.
How'd you get, Thomas? Yes, and the lid is a little frying pan. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Ooh, we're gonna
That was
turn
a
this
big,
over.
A big puff of steam.
Look at that. We're gonna flip this over.
The color is so beautiful.
Yeah. Look how dark it is. That's how dry that squash was. That there isn't much liquid coming off at all. Yay, Evelyn makes a mean squash. And it was the right age when we got it. Sometimes squashes are really wet.
Oh, it's true.
And don't mind if it's a little dark. That's okay. They're not burnt. They're caramelized. Look at those carrots. The carrots look yummy.
That looks so good.
That's a beautiful looking carrot. Flippity-doo-dah.
Very nice.
Now, I threw a little extra in here so that we can sample it before it's, just to see if it's actually ready or not.
I roasted vegetables last weekend. We had some friends come visit from Bridgewater area, and so we're making supper, and they're just lovely to visit with. So I just threw in 2 chickens to roast on some vegetables, and then a bunch of other vegetables on a pan.
So deliciousness on a pan.
Well, ideally. However,
Uh-oh.
I was talking, and we were just catching up, and da-da-da, and I just tossed in the oven. I forgot to set the timer.
Oh no!
So we went and had tea, and we were just talking in the living room and having a great visit. I said, oh no, the vegetables! And I went to the kitchen, black.
Yeah.
So they were my blackened,
Yes,
it was, it's a good joke, blackened parsnips, and they were, most of them were
almost
inedible.
cinnamony smell to the house with roasting parsnips.
Yeah. So
That's the timer is your best friend.
we composted the blackened vegetables and cut up a honeydew melon, which we had on this side, our roast chicken and honeydew melon, and some cranberry chutney. Did I tell you about it, or make you taste it, or bring you some?
I believe you were telling me you were making it.
I did.
I
And
never
it's
got over
delicious.
to pick cranberries.
There are still loads.
Good, I might go
Anytime.
sometime. Give this a little stir. Throw in some salt in a second. You want to try one?
Yeah.
Might be hot.
Sorry.
Mmm. Yummy. Or I love squash.
Oh, hot.
Yeah, very hot. But it's so dry.
Yum. Squash is cutting a squash. That smell of that. Doesn't have any words to describe.
Nope.
It's so pleasant and just so clean.
Fall, too.
They smell like fall and they smell really clean to me. I love squash.
I'm adding a little salt and pepper to my sauteing onion and celery and garlic and ginger.
Yum.
This is just sea salt I added. Really accurate measure. 2 pinches.
2 pinches.
Enough. If you use a salt shaker, enough to cover it. Like just a little thin layer of salt.
Tell me about your opinions on salt. What types of salt do you have? What do you use? What are your favorites for what purposes?
When
etc.
I'm doing meat or roasting things, I use kosher salt. Dissolves beautifully. When I use anything else, I use sea salt. And I have it already ground. I have a salt grinder. That's just for finishing things.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are the only 2 salts we have. I have coarse salt for pickling.
Yeah.
But that's just to make a brine. So,
Yeah.
So when Donald's brining a chicken or I'm doing cucumbers for bread and butter pickles,
Yeah.
I'll use coarse salt. That's it.
Yum. Do you have any particular brands that you buy? Or does it not matter?
We go to the natural food store and whatever they have. The
Nice.
kosher salt, which is getting crazy expensive at grocery stores, like, we get it at the bulk barn because
Okay.
that seems to be the most reasonably priced place to get it. It's kosher salt. It should be the same wherever you go.
Yeah.
But we get the sea salt from the natural food store. It's reasonably priced and it's always good quality. So
Nice.
that's where we go. Go local.
I think there is a place. So I've always thought it would be an amazing business idea to do like Nova Scotia salt. And I think there's somebody in Cape Breton who is doing it. And it's on my list of places to go.
To go
'Cause
visit.
I want to go visit this place and see what they're doing. Because I remember even being a kid thinking like, I could have a business if I could just dry out all this seawater.
Well,
However, that's
Well,
not the
and
direction
then-
my life took. But
this is beautiful looking, by the way. They're just sweating down.
yum. Oh yeah, it's just getting nice and the celery's getting green.
It smells so good too. Get the little hints of ginger and garlic and well, good tart. All right, I think we can take those out.
Perfect. So those are in there for about 40 minutes?
About 40 minutes.
At 425.
And depends on how big you cut them, but I like them about an inch
Yeah.
cubed. And all I'm going to do is toss them in now. This
Perfect.
is not a complex recipe. Roast, toss.
Okay.
All right, go. All right. Now, so that's a whole squash, about 2.5 pounds all chopped up, or 2.25 pounds. Now I'm going to throw in the broth, and I'll probably add a little water because you can see how thick this broth is. So this is about a liter of broth. And I'm going to add probably 2 cups of water to it because it's so thick.
Yeah.
Once we've cooked it a little. So I want it to simmer for about 10 minutes before I whiz it up.
Okay.
And then
Oh, it
it'll be
smells
good.
really good.
Now while that's heating up, so I've got 8 ounces of unsalted butter.
Good to know.
I also weigh everything. So this is the America's Test Kitchen drop biscuit recipe, which I absolutely love, and I'm going to add cheese to it. Balderson 2-year-old cheddar.
Yum.
Because you want a nice.
That is the best.
Isn't
the
it
best
good?
cheddar.
Isn't it
It's
good?
so good.
Now I've melted this almost completely.
Okay.
I'm going to stir it up so the rest melts. But the beauty of this, I don't want biscuits that come out like hockey pucks.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a drop biscuit, so I don't have to handle the dough at all. What I'm going to do is put in cold buttermilk into this, and it's all going to curdle up kind of thing, or congeal, little fatty blobs of goodness.
Yeah.
And that way it'll be beautifully mixed through the whole biscuit dough when we're ready to put it in. So I'm going to let that sit for a second. I need 2 cups of flour.
Sure.
And if you're into measuring and weighing flour, 2 cups is, well, each cup is 140 grams, so this would be 280 grams of flour. Yeah, 2 teaspoons baking powder, a teaspoon of sugar. And salt, and I believe it calls for 3/4 of a teaspoon. I'm only going to put in half a teaspoon because I'm putting in cheese.
Right.
Vast quantities of cheese, so that the salt will come from there as well. So I put all the dry stuff in there, and I gave it a little toss around because I want it to, I don't want everything in the same spot. Buttermilk. I need a cup of buttermilk. A whole rack of grated cheese. Now, you put in as much cheese as you want. I don't really care.
Okay.
I'm putting in a wad.
Do you have an approximate, like,
It's probably
quarter cup, half cup?
about a
Oh, it's
cup
very
of
fluffy,
cheese.
about a cup.
Yeah, a fluffy cup of grated cheese. That's that. I'm tossing the cheese in
I was just gonna,
so that it's not all in the same spot and
in
it's
with the flour, so it's getting all
Yep.
kind of coated.
color coated. Now I'm just whisking this in, and it's going to become a wonderful pile of little, almost like fat curds.
Yum.
Now once we shove these in the oven, we'll whiz up our soup. And then when the soup comes out, we can have fresh biscuits and soup.
Yum. Oh, that looks so nice. I've never made a drop biscuit, actually. I've only
Well,
ever made...
and all you do is stir it till there's no more flour left. You don't have to stir it much, and it's going to be very wet,
Yeah.
and that's okay.
All right.
I flipped over my parchment paper that had my squash on it.
I love it. That's so smart.
Why on earth would you waste it? And I've got this wonderful, like, 2 tablespoon scoop. So that way all my biscuits come out approximately the same size. Sometimes I've done little bits of, I've put a little extra sugar in and a little bit of lemon rind grated and poppy seed.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's a spin on one from my favorite baking book, which is called In the Sweet Kitchen. And she uses that type of biscuit for her strawberry shortcakes. Well, I make blueberry shortcakes, and the lemon and the poppy seed go really well with blueberry shortcakes.
Oh, that sounds so good.
Okay, fantastic. I'm gonna run and get some thyme.
Sure.
And I'll be right back.
Yes, take your time.
So I'm gonna let those bay leaves sit in there a little bit. I'm also gonna taste for salt. before I whiz this. So when the biscuits come out, I'll take the bay leaves out and then I'll whiz it all together. We're going to turn our biscuits.
Beautiful.
Yep. Do.
Yeah.
In you go, honey. I'll put that in for another, that was 9. So I'll give it another 6. That'll give me 15 minutes. I think it says 12 to 14 minutes. But I've always found it takes longer than that.
Yeah.
So
I find for
depends
biscuits it
on your-
often does, and it's so dependent on your oven and
Exactly.
kind of
all
how it
right.
heats and so forth. Nice. Oh, such a pretty color.
Got a taste. Ooh, the sweetness.
Okay.
Might need a little acid.
Oh, it is. Oh, that's so good though.
Just
Yum.
a brighten it up a little.
Oh yes.
Yeah, that's tasty.
That's so good.
Nice.
That's so good.
And it took some time, but it wasn't an overly complex recipe. So with curry, you could have put that in when you put the onions in, and it would have been
Yep.
awesome. You could add more ginger. You could add cinnamon to it, like a cinnamon stick when everything
Yeah.
else was cooking, and that would have gone and infused the whole thing, and it would have been lovely. You could add roasted parsnips as well.
Yum.
Yeah, that's got a lovely flavor to it. Hey, shoo!
Are
Shoo,
you still
shoo, shoo.
recording?
Yes. All right. Now, let's get a little dab of yogurt. Gee whiz, where's my yogurt?
The kids are trying.
They have been really well behaved. Like they've stayed out of the house.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. Oh yeah.
Would you like some soup, my friend?
Yes, please. I would love some.
It's very pretty looking.
I'll put this in my-
Now, another thing that'll add a little fat and a little acidity is this big
Oh,
daub
yeah.
of yogurt.
Yum. So that's the Liberté
10%.
10%. That's really
Oh wow. All this caramelized cheese on the bottom of the biscuit.
Yum. Okay, let me stir mine in.
It's almost like having a cheese tweel. It was
Oh
really
yeah,
good.
yeah, yeah.
You get to eat it now?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Oh, it's beautiful.
Fantastic, if I do say so myself.
You can absolutely say so yourself.
Bon appetit.
Yum. Oh, thank you so
I was going to
much.
offer you butter for your biscuit, but I think they're really
This is
buttery.
so buttery.
Yeah.
Okay, let me take a bite of soup first. It is so good.
And the only thing that didn't puree all the way are those little bits of ginger.
That is no
You
problem.
get a, you get a little crunchy.
I think it's
bit
the
of
ginger in it. That's what I typically don't put in mine. That is so
Mm-hmm.
nice because it's like warm and
Yeah, it's
kind of sweet and oh, so lovely. That's so good. And yeah, with that yogurt in there,
yeah, it
Oh,
just
it's so
brightens
good.
it.
it's just so flavorful and like, yeah, it's not fancy, but it tastes fancy, you know.
Well, and the entire batch of soup probably cost $5.
And that's a big batch of soup. Now
It's a
here's a
batch.
question I forgot to ask. Do you ever freeze it or?
Oh yeah,
And it freezes well.
yep.
Nice. This biscuit
Oh,
is
both?
so good, but it is light and it's so
Buttery.
buttery and cheesy and like delicately crunchy on the bottom. It is really, really good. Thank you so much.
Oh, this was fun.
Oh, it's just lovely. Thanks so much to Barb for welcoming me into her kitchen and for sharing this perfect fall recipe with us. Printable recipes, links to things we mentioned, and from our visit are up at novascotiakitchens.com. Thanks to Julian Smith for the music, and to Adam Graham for technical help and generally being awesome. And of course, thanks to you for listening. You can connect with me at the Nova Scotia Kitchens page on Facebook, or email novascotiakitchens@gmail.com, and we're also on Instagram at Nova Scotia Kitchens. Until next time.
Pause for a second. Everybody outside now. It's not happening. We are
Okay.
recording stuff. Shoo.
Vamos!
Vamos.